Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Okay, so we're about to hear from NDP Party Leader Jagmeet Singh, and he's going to be talking about the CRB, and he believes that the Liberals should continue the CRB and not cut anything out of it, because there's still people out there that need tremendous amounts of help, and the government should be working hard to support those people who still need help. He's also going to be asked some questions about what is happening in British Columbia with John Horgan opening up the economy and trying to get business restarted in British Columbia. He does answer the question with the idea that leadership should be looking at the data and listening to the science of the experts and do what the scientists are saying the trends are and follow the data. The thing for us here in the public is we need to make sure that that data is being shared with us so we understand what the government is actually doing and how they're actually trying to proceed forward with safe reopenings and vaccination programs. So let's listen to what Jagmeet has to say.
Bonjour and good day. I want to start off two things I want to share with you. First off is we are still in the middle of the pandemic. Things are still very volatile. We see numbers increasing and a situation developing in Manitoba that is really worrying. We're seeing people having to be sent to Ontario because the ICU units in Manitoba are being overrun. Things are bad. And we know that there are going to be continued risks and fears until we all get vaccinated. Despite the fact that there are still millions of Canadians that cannot go back to work, their sectors are still shut down. There are over 2 million Canadians that are still, or almost 2 million Canadians that are still using the CRB. The Liberal government is going to cut the help that these families receive by $800 a month for July and August. That is absurd. And what should happen is people should continue to receive help until we are fully reopened and people can go back to work and go back to their sectors. The fact that Justin Trudeau is cutting help to these people who are amongst the most desperate, the people who cannot go back to work, whose sectors continue to be closed, and we know there's many sectors that are still shut down. That's nearly 2 million Canadians that are going to be infected by the Liberals' decision to cut help to these people by $800 a month. And so we are fighting to stop that cut, as we have throughout the pandemic, fighting to keep help going for people that need it. And we're going to continue to use the tools we have to fight for that. The second thing I want to talk about, again, is the fact that in this pandemic, it is very clear that people have suffered. People have been hard hit by this, but big banks haven't been. In fact, big banks have posted profits, and some of them have posted record profits. They've made billions of dollars. They took public money. They made billions of dollars of profit, and now on top of it all, they are increasing bank fees in the midst of a pandemic. How outrageous does that even sound? The fact that banks are so callous to increase their bank service fees in the midst of a pandemic, and what's even worse is that the Liberals are letting them do this. The Liberals have the power to limit bank service charges. They have the power to limit what banks do, and Justin Trudeau is letting your bank increase the fees on you in a pandemic. That is so wrong. I don't have the words to describe how wrong that is. The level of greed that the Liberals are allowing the banks to get away with, to increase bank fees in the midst of a pandemic. So, of course, we're fighting against that and saying very clearly that Justin Trudeau needs to come out and tell these banks they can't increase their bank fees in a pandemic. The finance minister has to come out and say they can't be increasing their fees in a pandemic and use the powers that we have to stop them. The fact that I even have to say that they have to stop increasing fees in a pandemic itself is a ludicrous sentence, but I have to say that because that's what's going on. Donc, il y a deux enjeux que je veux toucher aujourd'hui. Premièrement, je veux toucher le fait qu'il y a presque 2 millions Canadiens et Canadiennes qui continuent d'avoir besoin de l'aide parce que leur secteur, leurs emplois ne sont pas là. Et la PCRE est là pour les gens, mais le gouvernement libéral, Justin Trudeau, va couper l'aide aux gens de $800 par mois pour juillet et le mois d'août. C'est complètement inacceptable de couper l'aide aux gens qui en ont besoin, particulièrement parce qu'on sait qu'il y a plusieurs secteurs qui sont toujours fermés. Donc, ce qu'on dit, c'est on doit continuer l'aide aux gens jusqu'au moment que les secteurs sont ouverts et leur travail sont encore disponibles, qu'ils peuvent retourner au travail. Donc, encore, c'est un exemple du gouvernement libéral qui coupe l'aide aux gens, mais ne fait rien pour faire payer le juste part des autres riches. C'est encore un choix que le gouvernement libéral et Justin Trudeau a fait, et c'est une mauvaise décision. On va continuer de mettre la pression pour arrêter cette décision, comme on a fait depuis longtemps pendant cette pandémie. À plusieurs reprises, on a forcé le gouvernement de continuer l'aide aux gens et d'augmenter l'aide aux gens. C'est un autre exemple où on va encore se battre pour vous et vos familles, de s'assurer que vous avez l'aide que vous avez besoin. Et deuxièmement, un autre enjeu que je veux toucher aujourd'hui, c'est le fait que dans une pandémie, c'était difficile pour les gens, c'est clair, mais ce n'était pas difficile pour les banques. Les banques ont fait des profits, des milliards de dollars, et ils continuent d'avoir une bonne situation. Malgré tout ça, ils ont augmenté leurs services bancaires. C'est complètement fou. Dans une pandémie, les banques augmentent les services bancaires. Et ce qui est encore pire, c'est le fait que le gouvernement libéral les laisse de faire ça. Parce que le gouvernement libéral, Justin Trudeau, a le pouvoir de limiter les frais de services bancaires. Ils ont le pouvoir d'arrêter tout ça. Donc, le fait que le gouvernement libéral et Justin Trudeau ils ont laissé les banques de faire ça, c'est complètement inacceptable. Encore, on exige Justin Trudeau de dire clairement que les banques ne peuvent pas augmenter les frais des services et elle doit arrêter tout de suite. Et encore, j'exige le gouvernement libéral et Justin Trudeau d'utiliser le pouvoir qu'on a au niveau fédéral d'arrêter ça et de limiter les frais, particulièrement pendant une pandémie. Merci. Thank you. With that, I'm ready for your questions. Je suis maintenant prêt pour vos questions.
Et nous allons passer aux questions, commençant par les questions au téléphone. Comme à l'habitude, une question suivie par journaliste. We will now take questions, starting with questions on the phone. As usual, one question, one follow-up per reporter. Operator, do we have a first question?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 if you want to ask a question on the device's keypad. Faites étoile 1 sur votre appareil pour poser une question. Alors, la première question est de Hélène Buzetti, les coops de l'information. À vous.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh. J'aimerais savoir, tout à l'heure, il y aura cette motion là, du Bloc québécois pour reconnaître la nation québécoise là, dans la Constitution. Je me demandais, avez-vous discuté de ça dans votre caucus? Est-ce que vous pouvez nous garantir que votre caucus est unanime avec vous là, pour endosser cette idée? Merci.
Bien sûr, comme parti, on était toujours là pour défendre la langue française. On est des first défendeurs de la culture québécoise et le fait que le Québec est une nation. Donc, on appuie fermement ces valeurs. Tout notre parti et mes députés appuient ça et on va appuyer la motion.
OK. Et plus spécifiquement, si je pouvais vous demander, par exemple, certains députés comme Matthew Green ou Jenny Kwan qui ont exprimé dans le passé certaines réticences par rapport au bilinguisme ou par rapport à ce qui se passe au Québec, avez-vous la certitude ou l'engagement de leur part qu'ils vont être de votre côté aussi?
Bien sûr, notre parti est uni avec l'idée qu'on doit défendre la langue française, l'importance de la nation du Québec et l'importance de les aider. Et on va faire ça. Moi, comme chef, j'ai toujours montré mon engagement de défendre la belle langue Molière et l'importance de la langue pour les Québécois et Québécoises. Donc oui, absolument, on va appuyer ça et c'est une position unanime et c'est quelque chose qu'on a déjà fait depuis des années. Sure. Yeah. We are, as a party, we have consistently defended French language. We think it's important to do so. I personally believe it's very important to defend the French language and have shown on numerous occasions our commitment to doing that. And with respect to the recent demands of Quebec, we absolutely support the recognition of French language and Quebec as a nation, and we'll continue to support that.
Opérateur, prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. Prochaine question, Catherine Lévesque, la presse canadienne, à vous.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur Singh. J'aimerais poursuivre dans cette même lignée. Je comprends que les discussions au caucus sont confidentielles. Par contre, est-ce que cette décision unanime a été prise à la suite d'un débat mouvementé? Est-ce que ça a été difficile de convaincre certains de vos collègues d'appuyer cette motion du Bloc?
Pas du tout. C'était quelque chose de normal. Notre parti a montré à plusieurs reprises qu'on appuie l'importance de défendre la langue française. Et on a montré à plusieurs reprises comment on doit la faire avec l'idée d'augmenter l'aide pour la francisation et l'importance d'avoir les services en français, pas seulement au Québec, mais aussi dehors du Québec. On a parlé de la modernisation de la langue française. Donc, notre engagement, c'était toujours là. Jack Layton est tellement connu comme quelqu'un qui a vraiment montré cet engagement. On continue avec cet même engagement.
Et est-ce que vous croyez que cette position, finalement, c'est cette position que vous partagez avec tous les autres partis fédéraux, là, en principe, est-ce que vous pensez que ça va vous aider au Québec lors de la prochaine élection?
Pour moi, ce n'est pas une question d'avoir l'aide ou non. Je pense qu'on ne peut jamais prendre pour acquis l'appui des gens. Donc, je vais continuer de montrer comment je me bats pour les Québécois et Québécoises, comment on a déjà fait ça pendant cette pandémie, pour presque 2 millions de Québécois et Québécoises qui ont utilisé la PCU. C'était nous, les néo-démocrates, qui ont augmenté le montant de $1,000 jusqu'à $2,000. C'était nous qui l'a fait. C'était nous qui avons livré l'aide aux étudiants au Québec et à travers le pays. C'était nous qui avons mis en place le programme de congé de maladie payé. Et c'était nous, en fait, qui ont sauvé des millions d'emplois en augmentant le montant pour la subvention salariale. Donc, on a montré comment on a aidé les gens au Québec et à travers le pays. On va continuer de montrer ça. Donc, c'est un engagement de continuer de me battre pour les gens. Ça inclut tous les gens à travers le pays. Et j'ai confiance que je peux montrer qu'ils sont dans une meilleure position avec plus de néo-démocrates parce qu'on se bat pour vous et on a livré la marchandise. On a montré comment on a eu la chance d'augmenter la qualité de vie des gens.
Opérateur, prochaine question.
Thank you. Merci. Next question, Mary Brooke, Island Social Trends. Your line is open.
Thank you. Hi, Jagmeet, your question that your claim there that the Liberals are proposing a cut to the CRB and that it will go down by 800. You had success with CRB making sure that the government didn't cut back on that. So will you be applying the same sort of approach in the House of Commons to that, or how are you going to assure people that it won't get cut back?
I really appreciate the question, and thank you so much. Yeah, we've a number of times had to fight back when CRB was about to be cut. You'll recall last summer there was an attempt to cut CRB, and we fought back and said no, people continue to need help, and we fought to continue it. And this is another example of a fight that we're going to have to continue the support. So right now we're proposing amendments at the BIA, the Budget Implementation Act, to make sure that this change is not adopted. So we're fighting hard. At the end of the day, if this cut happens, this cut of $800 to the nearly 2 million Canadians that still rely on the new version of CRB, which is now the CRB, if that cut happens, it's going to be because Liberals wanted it to happen, or maybe Conservatives supported them in doing it. But we are going to be very clear. We believe it's the wrong thing to do. We're fighting against it now. I'm hoping that this pressure that we can apply using this press conference today will also help us fight back. We know that there are still millions of Canadians that literally can't go back to work. They can't go back to work. They want to. Their sectors are shut down. Their businesses are shut down. They have no choice. Those people need our help. If we don't help those people, they're at risk of losing their jobs. They're going to lose their jobs. They're at risk of losing their homes. They're not going to be able to pay their bills. And so we have to provide them the support they need right now. And that's what we're going to continue to fight for.
Thanks. And also, I wonder what your comments would be on BC and other provinces starting to open up. Do you think it's too soon in terms of, I'm thinking of people who are in precarious work who may not want to go back into the workforce because of COVID still being out there, and they're kind of being forced to now by these reopening plans because the whole economy is opening up. They'll have to keep up with things.
It's a very tough question. How we plan out our reopening. I'm guided by the advice of public health experts, making sure we follow that advice. We are not out of this yet. Things are looking better. The vaccination is looking better. So things are in a positive direction, but we've got to make sure we're vigilant. We're still doing everything we can to stop the spread. And some of the things that we're going to do to help with the reopening to make sure it's done in a good way is that the paid sick leave still remains a really important tool to keep people safe. So we're fighting to improve the existing paid sick leave that we fought for at the federal level. That's one tool to help in the reopening. If people could stay at home when they're sick, that would certainly help reduce the spread of infection at workplaces. So I'm guided by the public health expert advice, and I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way and we're careful.
We'll now take questions from the room. Mike?
Thanks.
Thank you. Merci. There are no
Hi,
further
Mr. Singh.
questions at this time. Il n'y a plus de questions ce moment-ci.
Stephanie Taylor with the Canadian Press.
Hey there.
I want to ask about Bill 96.
Sure.
Bill 96 would have Quebec change the constitution in a way that in theory only affects that province, but some constitutional experts have raised concerns saying that recognition of Quebec as an essentially distinct society would change how Canadian laws are interpreted in Quebec. It could even impact the distribution of powers. Do you believe that Bill 96 in Quebec is simply symbolic, or do you believe it is more than symbolic?
I think it's important, but I do believe it's a symbolic representation of something that's already established. Like Quebec is clearly a French nation in Canada, and we've already acknowledged the Quebec people as a nation. And so this is very much an important but symbolic acknowledgement of things that we've already widely accepted. And that's why it's important to do, but it's certainly not something that in this case is controversial at all.
Do you think that this impacts provinces in any other way? Some provinces have raised concern or brought this point up. So do you see this as Bill 96 as specifically a Quebec issue, or does it in any way, shape, or form impact other provinces and how they conduct or don't conduct their business?
I don't believe it has any impact on any other province. I think it's something that's widely established and widely accepted that Quebec is a nation and that Quebec speaks French. I think, and acknowledging those two things are obvious and important and symbolic, but important to do.
Mike?
Mr. Singh, Michael Couture with Global National. I wanted to ask you, you said the government's changes to the CRB are concern you, but the CRB always seemed to be temporary in nature. It seems like their plan to roll it back comes in July when a lot of provinces are reopening and it may no longer be necessary. So when would you want to see it rolled back? Because it probably can't last forever.
I think we've got a really clear timeline. Two key things. When everyone's vaccinated and those sectors open up again. Those are really clear points that we can reach. When we hit a high level of vaccination and we get to a point where people who right now can't go to work because their sectors are shut down are able to go back to work, then it's a good time to move towards a transition to something else. Really, what we have is a scenario where we know there are 2 million Canadians that rely on this. And we know without any doubt that there are many sectors that are completely shut down. The tourism sectors, there's not travel coming in, so that's affecting thousands and thousands of jobs. We know that many of the service sector have been impacted, and that's affecting thousands of jobs. We know that anyone that works in a cultural or a festival relation, which again is thousands of jobs, these are jobs that are just simply not there. And I think we have a public interest in keeping those jobs going or keeping those people supported so that they can return to those sectors when those sectors are opened up again. I think there's a big risk here. If we don't help people that we're going to be faced with serious crises. People are going to lose their homes. People aren't going to be able to make ends meet. And these people are not going to be able to return to those sectors when they open up again. So I think there's a lot of good reasons for why we need to continue to help people, particularly while we are still in this pandemic, and particularly while we know that many sectors are still forced to be shut down and they can't go back to work.
Just as a follow-up, you seem concerned about, where the pandemic is at still. And I just want to get clear, do you support Premier Horgan moving forward with his reopening plan as it is?
I believe that Premier Horgan has shown a number of times that he's committed to following the evidence and following public health guidelines. I think we should all be informed by the expert advice around what is the best way to open up. And so that's my lens through which I look at openings. And I encourage everyone to continue to follow all the public health guidelines that are available in your province and in your communities, and that we follow advice in terms of how we open up safely. What we can do at the federal level to support that, the reopening, because we will reopen, and I want us to be able to get there, is to make sure that things like a paid sick leave program is in place. We know that the highest risk so far in terms of the spread of COVID-19 are coming from workplaces, and that's where we're seeing the highest rate of infection. So to help people, to give them the support they need so that they don't have to make an impossible choice, is to make sure there's paid sick leave available so people can stay home when they're sick.
Sorry, you're just not being clear on whether or not you support Premier Horgan, though, because you're saying how concerned you are about the pandemic and it's still going on, but Premier Horgan is going rather quickly here. So I guess yes or no, do you support Premier Horgan's plan to reopen their economy the way they are?
Like I said, Premier Horgan has shown a great leadership throughout the pandemic, and he has shown a commitment to following public health advice. With respect to how we open up, we should just follow the advice of the experts and make sure we've got a plan in place that respects the evidence and respects the plans. I've seen BC continually follow the evidence, and I think that's an important way for us to reopen.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.